Mexican President Felipe Calderon, as well as the Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, have been sharply criticizing Proposition 19, which would legalize marijuana if Californian voters approve the proposition on November 2nd. Calderon is essentially arguing that the United States is not doing enough to curb demand in the United States, and that a proposition like this is actually undermining the very costly war that Mexico is undertaking against the very powerful drug cartels in the country. Now, the fact of the matter is that this is really just one drug in one state in California, a soft drug at that. And unless the United States is politically prepared to take a nationwide stance on this issue, which it's not, there's very little chance that it is going to meaningfully curb demand in the United States and thus bring the level of violence down. But then if you take a closer look at the political pressures on Calderon right now, the geopolitics of the drug war become a lot clearer. There are two elections on the horizon in Mexico, the gubernatorial election in 2011 and then the presidential election in 2012. If Calderon wants his ruling party, the PAN party, to emerge the victor in these elections, he has to find a way to bring the level of violence down in the country one way or another. The cartel war has essentially reached a saturation point. People are sick of the war across the board. They're sick of the violence, most of all. And so how to bring that level of violence down is a key question. There's also an important economic factor to consider here. About $25 to $40 billion are estimated to be coming into Mexico on an annual basis through these drug sales. That's an enormous amount of money, and that's likely a low estimate. And then when you factor in the staggering profit margins that are made on each sale, there's a lot of liquidity that's being generated in the Mexican financial system. This is not money that's simply being pocketed or stuffed under mattresses. This is entering the Mexican financial system. And it's really important to note that in 2008, in the midst of the financial crisis, Mexico was one of the very few countries that was continuing to make loans on commercial real estate. Now, how does Calderon actually bring the level of violence down? There are a couple of factors here. One is inviting more U.S. participation in combating the drug cartels, but this is an enormously touchy issue for the Mexican government, which does not want to be seen inviting U.S. forces on Mexican soil. There is some training taking place by the United States for Mexican special forces, but there's also a huge risk attached to that training, since these well-trained Mexican forces could then turn over to the cartels where they could be making a lot more money on drug sales. That is exactly what happened with Los Zetas, which is the most violent cartel in Mexico right now, and these were guys that were formerly trained by the United States. Now, the more cunning and practical evolution that's likely to take place is the restoration of a balance of power both amongst the cartels and between the state and the cartels. Right now, the Sinaloa cartel is the best positioned to dominate the cartel scene, along with its current allies like La Familia Michoacan and the Gulf Cartel, which are crushing rival organizations like Los Zetas. Given that, the primary objectives of the Mexican government are both to bring the level of violence down and maintain the financial health of the economy. We'll be watching closely this trend of how the Mexican government tries to influence the cartel landscape in preparation for the coming elections.